Have you ever truly looked at the letters you're reading right now? Or, the ones shaping your social media feed, or the headlines on a billboard? Probably not, really.
Mm.
We interact with typography every single day, every single moment, often without even noticing it. It's kind of the invisible architecture of our written world, quietly shaping our understanding and, well, influencing our emotions.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's this silent language of design, constantly guiding our eyes, telling us what's important, and even subtly influencing how we interpret information. Yet most of us just see words, not the, intricate decisions behind them.
So what if we could pull back the curtain on this hidden world?
Yeah,
Welcome to a deep dive into the fascinating realm of type. Today we're guided by the insights from Ellen Lupton's acclaimed Thinking with Type 3rd edition.
great book.
Our mission is to unpack the core principles and the surprising history behind the letters, words, and layouts that surround us. We're aiming to give you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about typography, revealing its global impact and how it shapes clarity, meaning, and even our culture.
And by the end of this deep dive, you won't just see letters, you'll see the choices, the history, the intention behind them. We promise you'll start having those aha moments, seeing how understanding typography can unlock new insights into how information is organized and perceived. It gives you a completely new lens through which to see the written world.
Okay, let's unpack this with the book itself. The 3rd edition of Thinking with Type is clearly a big deal in the design world. Nadine Shaheen calls it a tour de force, a must-read for both novices and experts. But for our listener who might be just starting to dip their toes into this world, what makes this edition so, well, universally praised? Where does it truly shine?
That's a great question because it is exceptional. Lorraine Furter highlights that it's important and critical for anyone interested in typography and design, and that it presents, expands, and also challenges the typographic canon.
Challenges it, huh?
Yeah, but I think the real breakthrough and what makes it so praised comes from its commitment to inclusivity. Kalina Sales really nails it, describing it as the inclusive typography guide the industry deserves. It embraces, the humanity behind the diverse writing systems, languages, cultures. It's truly a global perspective this time around.
That's powerful. And Ellen Lupton herself is renowned for making complex topics accessible. She's curator emerita at Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian Design Museum, so she has this incredible ability to distill knowledge for everyone.
Precisely. This 3rd edition truly is renovated and refreshed with more pages and more content. And what's really fascinating here is its expanded global and inclusive examples. Lupton deliberately includes classic fonts, weird fonts, Libre fonts, Google fonts, Adobe fonts, indie fonts.
Wow, the whole spectrum.
And fonts and design work created by women and people of color. It's not just a broader view. It's, I think, a necessary one for anyone working in design or simply trying to understand how design impacts our diverse world today.
And I really appreciate this next point. The books shift from the mocking phrase type crimes to a more non-judgmental approach. It explains errors in a non-judgmental way to help readers take loving care of typography's living traditions. But I wonder, isn't there a risk, especially for novices, of losing some foundational principles if we become too non-judgmental? Where's the line between, thoughtful craftsmanship and just, well, doing whatever you feel like?
That's a thoughtful question, and it's definitely a balance. The book isn't saying anything goes, not at all. Instead, it encourages a deep respect for type's history and traditions, but within a framework that allows for experimentation. And it acknowledges that design isn't about rigid rules, but about effective communication. It's about understanding why certain principles work, so you can make informed decisions even when you decide to break them. Ultimately, the book's message is that typography is a tool for reading, writing, and learning, and for finding joy and revelation. It's less about arbitrary rules and more about making information clear, accessible, and meaningful in context.
That makes perfect sense. It's about thoughtful intention. Okay, now that we've talked about the book, let's dive into the fundamental building blocks. How are letters actually measured, and what's this talk about m-squares and point sizes?
Okay, so m-square and point size are traditional terms. They basically dictate the vertical space a letter occupies. You can think of the m as a unit of measurement that's relative to the font's point size. It's often like the size of the capital M in that typeface.
Oh, okay.
And in digital context, these translate pretty directly to pixels and rems.
And here's the crucial part about rems that maybe our everyday reader might not realize. Unlike pixels, which are fixed, rems are relative units. They adapt to a user's browser settings. So if you, as the listener, have your browser set to a larger default font size for accessibility,
Right.
the text designed with REMS will scale gracefully for you. It's a subtle shift, but one that ensures your text truly scales for everyone, regardless of their visual needs.
Absolutely. And each letter also has an intrinsic horizontal measure, its set width, plus a tiny side bearing or buffer space around it. That's why an I is much narrower than a W, for example.
Yep, gotcha.
It's these subtle measurements that allow letters to flow together, forming coherent words and lines. And it's something type designers spend countless hours perfecting, creating that visual rhythm we often just take for granted.
Now that we've pulled apart the letter piece by tiny piece, let's look at how those pieces have evolved over centuries. Because the story of typography isn't just about technical shifts, it's a fascinating reflection of human thought and societal change, literally etched into our alphabets from, say, the idealism of the Renaissance.
Exactly. Back then, in the Renaissance, typographers like Geoffrey Torrey in 1529 even derived letter proportions from idealized human bodies. It was a very organic, almost spiritual approach to letter form. Very different.
But then, during the Enlightenment, the scientific approach took over. Louis XIV's committee in France in 1693 designed the Romain du Roi using a finely meshed grid. That shift from the human touch to the, well, cold precision of a grid wasn't just technical. It fundamentally altered how people perceived the authority and trustworthiness of printed info. It made type feel less like art and more like objective truth, kind of setting the stage for industrialization.
Precisely. And this precision led us into what Lupton calls the sharp and monster eras. John Baskerville created these incredibly sharp typefaces in England, so much so that contemporaries actually accused him of blinding all the readers in the nation.
Blinding all the readers. It makes you wonder, if you were a printer back then, would you even want to use a font that came with that kind of reputation? Or maybe that was the whole point, to stand out.
Exactly. It was a bold statement, a reaction against the more refined typefaces, maybe like how some edgy street art challenges traditional gallery pieces today.
Yeah.
This precision was amplified around the turn of the 19th century by Giambattista Budoni in Italy and Firmandito in France. Their typefaces had severe contrast, crisp serifs, leading to an abstract approach to letters set free from the body and hands.
Right.
And this era also saw the rise of monster fonts for mass advertising in the 19th century. Sank huge, stretched, squeezed letters, often made from wood type. And their manufacture was revolutionized by the pantograph and router. Big changes.
So this machine-like thinking then sort of exploded into commercially successful fonts like Paul Renner's Futura in 1927. It was designed to literally dispense with handwritten movement, reflecting that sleek industrial age aesthetic.
And of course, the digital type revolution continues this evolution. Designers like Zuzanna Licco created functional typefaces specifically for extended reading in screen media, like her beloved Mrs. Eves and its sans serif companion, Mr. Eves. These are explicitly designed for how we consume text today, on screens, often for long periods.
Okay, so beyond just the basic letter forms, designers use various styles for impact. Take italics, for example. Originally, they mimicked handwriting, right? Adding a sense of movement to static text, but there's a nuance here, isn't there?
Absolutely. There's a huge difference between true italics, which are designed as a separate typeface with their own unique letter forms, and what the book calls typographic faux pas, false italics. That's just where software mechanically slants the Roman form.
Right, just leans it over.
Exactly. And the latter can look clunky, really distort the letter's intended shape. You might also encounter the less common upright italics, or even back slant italics, which are sort of playful deviations from the norm.
Numerals are another fascinating area with distinct personalities. We have lining numerals, which are uniform in height and work well with capital letters, and then old-style numerals, which have ascenders and descenders like lowercase letters. They look graceful in prose. Why do these subtle differences matter so much?
Well, they matter because they subtly influence readability and the visual flow of the text. Old-style numerals, for instance, tend to blend more harmoniously into a paragraph of text, creating a smoother reading experience. And it's fascinating to remember their journey, the Hindu-Arabic numeral system, starting in India, adopted by Arab mathematicians, then traveling to Europe. These small design choices can really significantly impact the readability and aesthetic of a page.
Punctuation marks, too. They carry a typeface's personality, almost like tiny expressive gestures. You know, thinking of Helvetica's chunky square comma versus Bodoni's voluptuous thin-stemmed blossom. They really convey the essence of the typeface.
Indeed. And the evolution of type families themselves is also quite telling. A type family includes various weights and styles, okay? But then you have superfamilies like Freight, Adele, or Scala. These offer both serif and sans serif styles. It's kind of like one-stop shopping for designers looking for consistency across different applications, ensuring a unified visual voice.
Audelature's Rotus superfamily even challenged that binary thinking by including steps between serif and sans serif, blurring the traditional lines, almost like a gradient from one style to another.
Exactly. And looking to the future, we have variable and parametric fonts. These are pretty amazing. They're single font files that support multiple weights and styles, making them incredibly valuable for web performance because you're loading less data.
Ah, makes sense.
They have standard axes like italic, optical size, slant, weight, width, but also custom parametric axes. For example, controlling the X height, allowing for incredibly precise manipulation. You can even use them for animation or dynamic logos. It's really a game changer for flexibility.
And it's not just about letters. Thinking with type also touches on elements beyond the alphabet, like ornaments and custom lettering. From traditional letterpress elements to digital color fonts, they all integrate with type to add visual richness. I particularly like the example of Vanessa Zuniga Tinizare's Nunca and Net, which is based on indigenous design principles. It shows how culture can infuse type beyond just standard characters.
That leads us beautifully into the global tapestry of writing systems. And this is one of the book's most crucial points, maybe one of the biggest aha moments for many readers. Not all writing traditions share Latin's strong vertical emphasis. This is where the world of typography truly expands, revealing wildly different solutions to the same challenge of conveying meaning.
So, for Arabic typography, for instance, what's its core philosophy and how does it manifest differently from, say, Latin scripts?
Well, that's a great distinction. Where Latin scripts often emphasize verticality and separation between letters, Arabic characters reading right to left with a strong horizontal stress are a masterclass in fluidity and connection.
Fluidity.
Yeah, it's not just a different direction. It's a completely different philosophy of how letters connect and convey meaning on the page. It reflects a very dynamic visual culture. Elements like tatwheel allow for elongating connections for justification, and letter fusions are often necessary for correct grammar. It's a complex, really organic system that prioritizes a seamless horizontal flow, often with unique alignment systems for top, bottom, and middle lines. Very different feel.
And what about the scripts of India? How do they approach letter forms?
They're wonderfully diverse. North Indian scripts like Devanagari, Bangla, and Gujarati often have a 45-degree angled stress, reflecting their rich calligraphic traditions. South Indian scripts like Telugu and Kannada were traditionally monoline, meaning consistent stroke width, but gained contrast over time.
Interesting.
And what's truly insightful is that Indic characters often have these evocative anatomical terms like shoulders, necks, beaks, legs, tails, and eyes. It highlights a profound, almost organic connection between the human form and the letter, something Latin scripts kind of lost centuries ago.
Chinese typography also presents a distinct visual logic. How do its characters achieve their balance?
Chinese characters gravitate to the heart. That's the key idea. They're formed by strokes, clustering around a center of gravity, so even though they can be incredibly complex, they maintain a visual equilibrium. There are main families like regular script, song tea, imitation song, and Haiti, each with its own aesthetic, but all adhering to this internal balance.
And Japanese typography, of course, combines different systems, right?
It does. Japanese typography uses both ideographic kanji, borrowed from Chinese, and syllabic hiragana and katakana. And while traditionally written vertically with a brush, it adapted pretty readily to horizontal writing with the spread of Western books. It shows a remarkable flexibility in its typographic heritage.
But if we're talking ingenious design, I keep coming back to Korean typography, Hangul. The book really highlights its remarkable structure.
Hangul is truly brilliant. I mean, its consonants are designed based on the actual shapes of the mouth and tongue when forming sounds like Angil, represents the tongue touching the back of the mouth.
Wow.
And the vowels relate to cosmic philosophy, representing heaven, earth, and human. It's deeply symbolic and incredibly logical at the same time. Hangul uses a building block configuration system for characters, where individual components are stacked or placed next to each other within a square space. This creates a unique visual density that differs quite a bit from Latin. It's truly a marvel of phonetic and philosophical design.
It's clear that type plays a huge role in connecting communities, especially when we consider the sheer linguistic diversity of our world.
Absolutely. The November type system, for instance, supports hundreds of languages on the Indian subcontinent. That's a massive undertaking, designed specifically to bridge communication gaps.
And a deeper dive into Type for Africa reveals the Kagilia typeface family, designed by Mark Jamra and Neil Patel. This family supports over 2,000 African languages and scripts, including Inco, Adilim, and Tifana. That's incredible. And what's crucial about Kigelia is its mobile-first design. Why is that specific focus so important for Africa?
It's paramount because mobile devices are often the primary means of communication and commerce across much of the continent. So Kigelia is designed to function beautifully and efficiently on smaller screens. It's about eliminating communication barriers and fostering local content creation. It's an incredibly tangible example of how typography isn't just about aesthetics. It's really about empowerment and access.
This brings us directly to inclusive design. The book defines it as creating content that everyone can understand, regardless of their background, language, or ability. It's about ensuring accessibility for all users, which, after our discussion of global scripts, feels like a really natural progression. So beyond just defining it, how do we put it into practice? What are some of those key principles that can make content truly accessible?
Well, it gives us really tangible ways to put into practice, starting from the very words we choose, right through to how we structure the page. The book outlines principles like using plain language, explaining abstract ideas with concrete examples, providing alternative text for images, captions for audio, using HTML headings for structural clarity so screen readers know what's what, ensuring strong dark-light contrast for readability, and declaring the document language for screen readers. These aren't just nice-to-haves, they're critical for breaking down barriers.
It even offers practical examples of inclusive form design, showing how things like open-ended questions, visible labels, descriptive error messages, and clear button labels contrast with exclusive forms that can confuse or exclude people. It's really about designing with empathy, anticipating diverse needs.
And this section gets really interesting with how typography can promote gender-inclusive language. It cites the use of punctuation, like the German gender star, like in Feministin, to diminish binary distinctions and create more inclusive forms of address. It highlights how type itself can evolve to reflect societal shifts and promote broader understanding.
Moving from individual letters and inclusivity to entire pages, let's talk about shaping the message through layout and structure. The primary modes of aligning columns are, centered, justified, flush left rag right, and flush right rag left. Each gives a different feel.
Indeed. And the rag, that uneven edge on a flush left paragraph, is something designers carefully manage. To make it look even cleaner, they often use hanging punctuation.
Hanging punctuation.
Yeah, imagine a comma or a period subtly nudging outside the main text margin, so the text block itself stays perfectly straight. It creates this incredibly crisp visual line. It's a tiny detail, but it speaks volumes about precision. And in complex or bilingual layouts like Arabic reading right to left and English left to right, designers often use multiple alignments on the same page to make it work.
The rhythm of line length is also vital for readability. The recommended range is 35 to 75 characters per line. I've definitely felt the strain of reading lines that are just way too long.
Oh yeah, they absolutely can tire the eye, forcing it to scan too far back and forth. While lines that are too short feel choppy and disrupt the reading rhythm, making you jump from one line to the next too quickly. It's a delicate balance to keep the reader engaged.
Paragraphs and short lines are another common challenge. The book discusses various ways to mark paragraphs with indents, line breaks, or space after. Pretty standard stuff.
Right. And it addresses those pesky short lines or bad breaks, which were formerly called widows and orphans terms. The book rightly notes are kind of sexist and insensitive. It highlights how some cultures, like Sweden, have adopted more respectful terms like busungen, meaning cheeky young rascals.
Cheeky young rascals. I love that. It's a much nicer way to think about it. Fine-tuning space within and between lines is also a subtle art. Can you clarify the difference between kerning and tracking? They sound similar, but they're distinct operations.
Absolutely. Kerning is the subtle art of adjusting space between two specific letters like T and A or T and W to improve their visual harmony. Metric kerning uses the spacing the type designer intended built into the font, while optical kerning is an automatic adjustment by software, often better for headlines where those specific pairings really stand out. Tracking, on the other hand, adjusts the space uniformly across a group of letters, a word, a line, a paragraph. It creates denser or lighter textures or helps fit more content in. It's also often used for reverse text, like white text on a dark background, where a little extra space can improve legibility.
And vertical space, or leading, that's the space between lines. The book mentions set solid, where line space matches the font size, but it warns against relying on auto-spacing. Why is that?
Auto-spacing from software can create inconsistent vertical rhythm, making a page feel uneven or chaotic. The book emphasizes the importance of setting leading deliberately and maybe using things like baseline shift for precise vertical adjustments to ensure a consistent, pleasing rhythm down the page. It's about controlling the flow, really.
This all leads to hierarchy, which is crucial for clarity. You can have minimal hierarchy, which primarily uses space to differentiate elements, or layered hierarchy, which the book wonderfully likens to an ice cream sundae loaded with sizes, weights, styles, colors to create emphasis.
That analogy perfectly captures it. The book also introduces type scales, which are mathematical ratios used to determine proportional type sizes. This ensures a harmonious visual flow rather than just arbitrary changes in size. And critically, it stresses the importance of both visual and semantic hierarchy for accessibility. HTML tags, for example, like H1, H2, P tags, are semantic cues that help screen readers understand the structure of a document, making content accessible to everyone, not just those who can see the visual hierarchy.
Right, structure for machines as well as humans.
Exactly.
And the unseen structure behind all of this, the scaffold, is the grid. Grids act as scaffolds and skeletons that organize diverse content, but they're not just about rigidity, are they? They can be flexible.
Oh, far from rigid. Historically, grids evolved from Jan Tschichol's The New Typography to the influential Swiss design school think Karl Gerstner, Joseph Müller-Brockmann, Max Bill. They actually promoted grids partly for philosophical reasons, for a more democratic society, and unprecedented clarity in design. They believe a clear structure could lead to a more understandable and thus more equitable world.
Interesting connection.
Yeah, and grids can be simple or complex, repetitive or irregular. They function as a resilient skeleton that adapts to content and display modes. The book details various types: column grids, modular grids, great for iterative design, and baseline grids for ensuring that crucial vertical rhythm.
And finally, in our digital age, responsive and serial design are paramount. Responsive layouts adapt typography to different viewports or screens, often using fluid typography for gradual changes between sizes. This is why a website looks good on your phone, tablet, and desktop, right?
Exactly. It's all about designing for flexibility across devices. And serial design takes that further, involving applying consistent typographic hierarchies across multiple formats like posters, websites, app UI cards to unify a brand identity. UI cards, for instance, serve as these modular building blocks that can be rearranged and resized while maintaining a cohesive visual language. It's truly about creating a consistent visual language that works across every single touchpoint, from print to screens of all sizes.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's really clear that typography is far more than just choosing pretty fonts. It's a dynamic system that underpins almost all written communication, reflects cultural heritage, adapts seamlessly to technology, and directly impacts readability and accessibility for absolutely everyone.
Absolutely. This deep dive has hopefully offered you, the listener, a fresh perspective, allowing you to see the hidden architecture of text and appreciate the thoughtful decisions behind every well-designed page or screen you encounter daily. You'll probably never look at a menu or a website quite the same way again.
And maybe a final thought to leave with. As technology continues to evolve and our world becomes even more interconnected and multilingual, what new challenges and opportunities will emerge for typography? How might type continue to shapeshift to serve global communication and human understanding in ways we can barely even imagine today?